Sometimes when you have sets of data, you may wish to merge a number of the data columns, or conversely, you may wish to split one of the data columns into more than one column. Here in our working file contacts extract D, we can do both of those things. First is to look at merging two columns to get one new column. So the first stage is to add a new column. Let's go up here, insert a new column. That new column's title is going to be full name, and then the full name is going to consist of the first name and the surname. So in the full name column under B2, I could use two methods really. I could use the concatenate function. So that's equals concatenate, open brackets, that cell, comma, a space. I need to put space in speech marks, comma, that cell. You can see here in the function it's going to take whatever the contents of D2 are, which is Amanda, then a space, and then whatever the contents of F2 are, which is Cook. Close the round brackets, return, and I get Amanda Cook. And then I can replicate that function to get everybody's name. You may need to slightly widen the column to see everybody's name. Some people have got quite long names. So that's one method. If I insert, there is another. We'll call that full name 2. Now, essentially, it is just concatenating, but without the long named function. We just say equals that cell there, the ampersand symbol, speech marks, space, speech marks, ampersand. So that's my sticking the space between, and then Cook. Return, and I get exactly the same result. Obviously, a much shorter function. That's E2 ampersand, speech marks around the space so that I physically get the space between the two bits of text, which happen to be the first name and the surname, ampersand G2. Once I have my function working, if I then want that to be normal data, I would do as we've done previously, copy, and then paste back on top of the functions, the values. So these are now actual text values. So I can do whatever I want to them, further work, remove these columns because I'm now no longer referencing them. I actually have the text of the full name. So that's sticking together, and you can stick together as many bits of data as you require to build whatever you're trying to build. It may be that you want to stick together 3 parts of a date to create a date. That's all possible. Ampersand symbol for sticking together the cell contents you wish, or the concatenate function as we used here, which simply has a comma between each of the actual text, in the case of the speech marks for the space, or the cells that you want to stick together. Now, splitting apart isn't much more difficult than that. Let's go into contacts 2, for example, where we see we have the full name. But it may be in this set of data, what I'd actually like is the first name and the surname separated. So a little bit like the sticking together, with the splitting apart, I need to make somewhere for the splitting aparts to go. So I need to insert 2 columns. Now, splitting apart actually has a few ways of being achieved. The first of those is to highlight everything that I've got here. So all of my full names, then go to data, text to columns. Is my data fixed width or delimited? Well, it's not fixed width. Everybody's name is a different length, so it's delimited. Next, how is it delimited? It's delimited by a space. So there is a space between the first name and the surname. And you can see in the preview, it splits my data into 2 columns. There is then the option to go next and actually look at not importing any columns or formatting any dates. But if that's not required, then you can actually just go straight for the finish button here. Now, unfortunately, what I didn't do is tell it where to go, and it's going to appear back on top of itself, which is not what I want. I'm going to click cancel. I want it to go here and here. So we go back to text to columns. It's still delimited. It has a space. And in the next box, you can see there the destination B2. That's not where I want it to go. I want it to start in C2 so that I retain the full names. First name and the last name will then be split into these 2 cells. So all I need to give it is the starting point, C2. Back in and then finish. There's already data here. Okay, let's try out and see what happens. Okay, and we'll look down the column. Information. It's always worth checking to make sure you haven't actually overwritten everything. That seems okay. What I would tend to personally do when you're splitting things like this is actually not insert 2 blank columns, but insert 4 blank columns. Just in case, because I'm delimiting by space, what happens if there's an extra space in here, or somebody had a middle name or a double surname? Then that would actually overwrite the phone number or the email address. So in that case, I've broken my data. So put more blank columns than you think you're going to need. If you don't need them in the end, you can delete them. It's not a problem. But if you have them, At least you won't lose any of your existing data. So that was text to columns, and that's done the job. It's split my name into first name and surname. I'm quite happy with that. Let's undo. There are other methods. We could use functions. In here, if I want the first name, I could use the left function, which you may have seen already. Equals left, open brackets. I want to take some of the left characters off of Amanda Cook. But what it needs to know is how many characters do I need to take? Well, I need it to take as many characters as there are until it gets to the first space. So I can use the find function, which we have seen previously, to find a space. I need to put speech marks, space, speech marks, comma. Where am I looking for this space? Well, I'm looking in B2 as well. Close brackets for the find, close brackets for the left. So the find will return the character position for the space in Amanda Cook, and that's where I'm telling the left function to end. When I press return, I get Amanda, and if I replicate, I get everybody's first name. Now the first name is easier than the last name. The last name, you could use the mid function, because I don't want to start from the beginning, I want to start part way through. So mid of which cell? Well, it's that cell there, comma. How do I know where to start in the function now? How far through? Well, that's finding the space again. Find space within B2. Then I need to add one on, plus one. Otherwise, it will start with the space because it finds the space, but I don't want the space. I want the next character after the space. So that's plus one, comma. But then how many characters does it know to get? How many more characters are there in that string? Well, firstly, I could figure out the length. So len of B2. And then I could take away from the length the position that I'm starting from, which is find space within B2 plus one. Close brackets for the mid, return, and I get Cook. And if I replicate, I get everybody's surname. So we could use text to columns, or we could use text manipulation functions, where we've used left here and find, and for the surname we've used mid and find and len. So that was a little bit more winded than text to columns, but it still does the job if the data matches what you're looking for. Let's undo and demonstrate the last method, which has got to be the best and the fastest really. We have our two blank columns ready to go. We have Amanda Cook that we want to split into two. So what we do is we put Amanda in there and Cook into there. So we've done the split ourselves. We've looked, we've said, oh, the split is Amanda and Cook. Having done the split for the first one, we can then highlight Amanda and Cook, go to the data ribbon, and I want to choose flash fill. But you can see how it's grayed out because flash fill only works on one column at a time. Okay, let's go to Amanda and try flash fill. And without any text to columns or any clever functions, Excel has spotted that I want the first name from all of that lot, and it's done it. What about Cook? Can it manage that? I go to Cook, flash fill, and it again has spotted that I've taken the surname off of all of those values, and it's placed them in for me. So this is the actual surname and the actual first name. There's no functions involved, so I don't have to do copy and paste special to get the values out of the function. It's just spotted the pattern I was trying to achieve and made the split for me. That flash fill is absolutely fantastic. Just watch in action up here. If I insert another column here, what I'm trying to do here is split out the Amanda 3 and the Lauren 24, so the prefix on the email address. So if I do the first one, Amanda 3, and then go to flash fill, it realizes what I've tried to do and goes and pulls out everything before the @ symbol all the way down. Ideally, we should really have gone with flash fill first, and I'm sure in real life situation you will. Now you know and can see how powerful it is. The backup is then your find and left and mid and len functions that will help you split strings up, or text to columns, where if there's a delimiting value, it can quite easily split a large column of data into multiple columns.